The paralyzed Apache woman was left in a car until a rancher arrived. Maria had always been a strong young woman, proud of her Apache heritage and the life she had built for herself. She lived in a small, quiet town in Arizona, surrounded by wide, open plains, distant mountains, and endless skies that changed colors with the rising and setting sun. Maria had faced many challenges in her life, some that would have broken anyone else. Yet she carried herself with quiet strength and resilience. Her body, however, had a history of struggles that left her partially paralyzed. Even so, Maria never let her condition define her. She had learned how to adapt, how to live independently, and how to navigate the world with courage and determination. On that particular afternoon, the sun was unusually bright, and the heat pressed down on everything like a heavy blanket. Maria had gone out to run a few errands. She parked her old, dusty car in a small lot near the edge of town. It was a place she often visited, a spot that felt safe because it was quiet and out of the way. She had not expected anything to go wrong. But in life, even the safest moments could turn suddenly dangerous, and this day would be one of those moments. After completing one of her errands, Maria returned to her car, feeling slightly tired but content. She opened the door and tried to settle in. But as she did, a sudden commotion outside startled her. People were moving quickly, voices shouting, but she could not understand why. A careless mistake, a misunderstanding, or perhaps someone in a hurry. Whatever the cause, she found herself locked inside the vehicle. The door that she had opened with ease moments before was now stuck, unresponsive to her attempts. Panic began to rise, like a dark wave creeping over her mind. The heat inside the car became almost unbearable. The windows trapped the sun's energy, turning the small space into a furnace. Maria tried to adjust her position, to find even a slight relief from the sweltering air, but her paralysis made it difficult. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against the glass, hoping someone might notice her. She shouted, but her voice seemed swallowed by the stillness of the surroundings. The few people who walked by were too far to hear her cries, and soon they disappeared from view, leaving Maria alone again with the oppressive heat and her growing fear. Time slowed down inside the car. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Maria's throat was dry, her lips cracked from the heat, and her body was growing weaker. Each second became a test of endurance, a battle between her will to survive and the physical limits of her body. She tried to think of her family back home, the people who loved her and depended on her. She thought of her childhood, of the stories her grandmother used to tell her about Apache courage and perseverance. Those memories gave her a small measure of comfort, a reminder that she had inherited strength that no one could take away. As she sat there, Maria's mind wandered to the people who might pass by. She imagined someone noticing her, stopping to help, calling for assistance. Every passing car became a source of hope, a chance that relief was just around the corner. Yet, each car that passed without slowing down crushed that hope, leaving her feeling more isolated and alone. The deserted streets and empty lots seemed endless, the world outside the car indifferent to her struggle. Her heart raced, not just from the heat, but from the uncertainty of what would happen next. Despite her fear, Maria refused to give in. She knew that panic would only make the situation worse. She took slow, measured breaths, trying to keep her mind clear and her thoughts focused. She reminded herself of the skills she had developed over the years, how to manage her condition, how to cope with difficult situations, and how to stay calm when danger approached. She tried to move her body in small, careful ways, adjusting her position to reduce discomfort. Every tiny movement felt like an achievement, a small victory in the midst of a frightening ordeal. Maria also began to notice the details around her, the way the sun hit the dashboard, the shadows cast by the car seats, the faint sound of wind through the cracks in the windows. She listened intently for any unusual sound, any sign that someone might be nearby. Her senses, sharpened by necessity, became her lifeline. She realized that even in moments of extreme danger, there were ways to observe, to assess, and to plan. Her mind, alert and focused, became her most powerful tool for survival. Hours seemed to pass, though she could not be sure. The heat continued to rise, and Maria felt the first signs of exhaustion and dehydration. Her skin felt sticky, her muscles stiff, and a dull ache spread through her body. She tried to drink some water from the bottle she had in the car, but even that small comfort was difficult to reach. Each sip was precious, a reminder of the importance of small things in moments of crisis. She thought about how fragile life could be, how quickly a normal day could turn into a battle for survival. In her solitude, Maria also reflected on her life. The dreams she had, the obstacles she had overcome, and the people who had helped her along the way. She thought about the kindness of strangers she had encountered in the past, the friends who had supported her, and the community that had shaped her. Those thoughts became a source of strength, a mental shield against despair. Even as the physical heat threatened to overwhelm her, she clung to the warmth of these memories, drawing courage from the human connections that had enriched her life. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the lot, Maria's hope wavered. She wondered if anyone would find her before it was too late. Her energy was fading, and the fear of being alone for much longer gnawed at her spirit. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath, and whispered a quiet prayer. It was not just a plea for help, but also a statement of her determination to survive, to hold on, and to face whatever came next with courage. And yet, just when despair threatened to take over, a faint sound in the distance reached her ears, the rumble of an engine, the crunch of tires on gravel. Maria's heart leapt with cautious hope. Could it be someone coming to her rescue? She pressed her hands against the glass again, straining to see through the glare of the setting sun. The sound grew louder, more distinct, until finally, the outline of a truck appeared on the horizon. For the first time in hours, Maria felt a spark of relief. She was no longer completely alone. Though exhausted and weak, Maria's spirit remained unbroken. She realized that survival was not only about physical strength, but also about patience, awareness, and the ability to hold on to hope even when the odds seemed impossible. Every moment she had endured alone in that car had tested her, but it had also prepared her for the next chapter, one that would bring help, compassion, and a reminder of the goodness that could exist in the world. Maria braced herself, knowing that her ordeal was not yet over, but confident that help was near, and that she was ready to face it with the courage that had carried her this far. Maria's heart raced as she watched the distant truck grow closer. Every moment felt like a lifetime, and yet, in that anxious waiting, her mind drifted to the many ways life had tested her before. She thought about the accidents she had survived, the long nights of pain and recovery, and the moments when she had felt completely alone in the world. Those memories, though painful, gave her strength. She had faced hardship before and survived. This moment, she told herself, would be no different. But the weight of fear was heavy, and even the thought of potential rescue brought a strange mixture of hope and anxiety. As the truck rolled closer, Maria could make out the figure of a man inside. His posture was calm but alert, as if he was aware that something unusual was happening. For a brief moment, she wondered if she had imagined the sound, if the hope that had built inside her mind was just a cruel trick. She pressed her hands against the glass again, her fingers trembling, hoping that he would notice her before it was too late. The sunlight reflected off the truck's windshield, making it difficult for him to see her at first. Maria felt a pang of panic. What if he drove past without seeing her? What if she had to wait longer, her strength draining with each passing second? Time seemed to stretch even further. Every sound, every movement outside the car felt magnified. The crunch of gravel under the truck's tires, the faint whir of its engine, and even the wind brushing against the car became signals of hope. Maria tried to make herself more visible, waving her arms as best she could, but her paralysis made her movements slow and uncertain. She shouted again, her voice hoarse from hours of strain, but the sound barely traveled in the open space surrounding her. She took a deep breath, steadying herself, and whispered words of encouragement to herself in her native Apache language. She reminded herself that she was strong, that she had survived worse, and that help was very close now. Despite the hope, a part of Maria could not escape the fear gnawing at her. She thought about what might happen if the man did not stop. She imagined being trapped there through the night, the temperature dropping, the fear growing into despair. Her mind wandered to her family and friends, picturing the worry on their faces if she did not return home. She thought about the life she had built for herself, the independence she had fought so hard to maintain, and how fragile it all seemed in that moment. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She focused on the task at hand, surviving until help arrived. The truck finally slowed as it reached the parking lot, and Maria felt her heart leap. The man had seen her. Relief washed over her like a cool breeze, and she could not help but let out a shaky sigh. She watched as he stepped out of the vehicle, his eyes scanning the car quickly and carefully. He was tall and strong, with a calm but purposeful presence that immediately reassured her. Maria felt a spark of trust ignite in her chest. Here was someone who could help her, someone who had recognized her distress and taken action without hesitation. The man approached the car slowly, his movements deliberate and careful. Maria's hands reached out toward him, though her strength was fading with each passing moment. She wanted to speak, to tell him everything that had happened, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she pressed her palms against the window and looked at him with wide, pleading eyes. The man knelt beside the car and gently tapped on the glass, speaking softly so she could hear him over the noise of the wind and his own movement. He reassured her that help was coming, that she was safe now, and that he would not leave her alone. The sound of his voice was like a lifeline, grounding her amidst the panic that still lingered. While waiting for emergency assistance, the man worked carefully to ensure Maria's comfort. He shaded her from the sun with a large jacket he had brought, giving her body a small reprieve from the blistering heat. He offered her water from a bottle he carried, and although her hands were unsteady, she managed to take small sips. Each drop revitalized her, giving her the energy to hold onto consciousness and hope. The man spoke in a calm, steady tone, sharing small words of encouragement and gently asking questions about her condition. His presence was a steady anchor in the chaos, a reminder that she was not alone and that someone truly cared. Maria's mind began to process what had happened. She thought about the hours she had spent trapped, the desperation, the fear, and the struggle to maintain hope. She realized that the ordeal had been both terrifying and illuminating. It reminded her of the importance of human kindness, the value of compassion, and the strength that could emerge even in the darkest moments. As the man continued to reassure her, Maria felt tears prick her eyes, not of fear, but of gratitude. She had been seen, acknowledged, and cared for when she needed it most. Despite her relief, Maria was also aware that her body was weak. The hours of being trapped had taken a toll on her muscles, her energy, and her ability to focus. She shivered slightly, not from cold but from exhaustion, and leaned back against the seat as much as her body would allow. The man noticed and carefully adjusted the shade and the position of her body to make her as comfortable as possible. His attention to detail, his careful consideration, and his patient presence reminded her that even in a world that could sometimes feel indifferent, there were people capable of extraordinary compassion. As the sun continued its descent, the shadows around the car grew longer. Maria's fear gradually eased into a cautious optimism. She knew that the immediate danger had passed and that help was fully on its way. Yet, she also recognized the importance of patience. The next steps were still critical. She needed to stay calm, stay hydrated, and remain aware of her body's limits. She focused on breathing steadily, letting the man's calm demeanor influence her own mental state. Each breath was a small victory, a reaffirmation of life and endurance. In the quiet moments, Maria also reflected on her own resilience. She had survived being paralyzed, navigating a world not always designed for her needs. She had faced neglect, isolation, and countless challenges in her life. Yet, in those moments inside the car, she realized how much strength she had cultivated over the years. Her determination to survive, her ability to remain composed under extreme stress, and her mental focus were all products of years of perseverance. She felt a deep sense of pride, mixed with humility, knowing that her journey had prepared her for moments like this. The man stayed by her side, moving only when necessary, speaking softly, and offering words of encouragement. Maria began to feel a sense of connection, a recognition that even strangers could become vital allies in moments of crisis. She realized that courage was not only about facing fear alone, but also about allowing others to support you when needed. The experience was teaching her that vulnerability and strength could coexist, and that asking for or accepting help did not diminish her resilience, it reinforced it. As the sky turned shades of orange, pink, and purple with the approaching evening, Maria's hope solidified into confidence. She knew she would survive this ordeal, not just because of her own inner strength, but because of the humanity of someone willing to stop, notice, and act. She reflected on how quickly life could change, how moments of danger could appear unexpectedly, and how critical it was to stay alert, aware, and ready. But more importantly, she realized that human kindness, even from a stranger, could make all the difference between despair and hope. By the time emergency responders were sighted in the distance, Maria felt a sense of calm she had not experienced in hours. The man who had stopped to help her remained at her side, carefully guiding her as she was finally lifted from the car. She could feel her heart slowing, her breathing steadier, and a profound sense of gratitude filling her chest. The ordeal had been frightening, exhausting, and intense, yet it had also revealed the resilience within her and the extraordinary potential for compassion in others. Maria's mind was full of reflections as she was helped into the ambulance. She thought about her life, the struggles she had faced, the people who had supported her, and the stranger who had appeared at just the right moment. In the midst of fear and uncertainty, she had discovered hope, strength, and humanity. She realized that her journey was far from over, but she was no longer afraid. She had survived, learned, and grown stronger. And for the first time that day, Maria allowed herself to truly believe that she would be okay. The truck came closer with a steady hum, its tires crunching over the gravel as it neared the dusty lot where Maria sat trapped in her car. From inside, she could see the outline of a man through the windshield, his posture alert and deliberate. She strained her eyes, trying to make out details in the glare of the sun. Every heartbeat seemed louder, every second stretching longer than the last. Hope and fear battled inside her. Could he be someone who would help, or would he drive past, oblivious to her struggle? The man slowed his vehicle and stopped a few feet from the car. Maria's heart pounded as she watched him step out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a calm, reassuring presence. His hat shaded his eyes, but she could feel the intensity of his gaze directed toward her. He walked steadily, confidently, yet with caution, as if aware that she was vulnerable and that every movement mattered. Maria's voice was weak from hours of shouting and struggling, but she tried to call out, waving her hands as best as she could. The man noticed immediately. He moved closer, crouching down beside the car window. His voice was gentle but firm, carrying over the distance just enough to reach Maria. "Hey there, I see you. "Are you okay?" he asked, his tone calm, reassuring. Maria's chest tightened. Relief and fear collided as tears pricked her eyes. She nodded slightly, though her voice caught in her throat. She wanted to speak, to explain, but the words seemed to tangle in her mouth. The heat, the exhaustion, and her weakened body made it hard to form even a simple sentence. He gently tapped on the car window again, then motioned toward the door. "Don't worry, I'm here to help, just hang on, all right?" Maria felt a small surge of hope. Someone had finally noticed her. Someone cared. The hours of fear, the hours of loneliness, and the unbearable heat seemed to lessen just a little with his presence. She tried to move toward him as much as she could, pressing her hands on the glass, a silent plea for help. He nodded reassuringly, his expression patient and kind. He quickly assessed the situation. Maria's condition was fragile. She was partially paralyzed and trapped in the heat. The man knew that every second mattered. He shaded the car with his jacket, trying to protect her from the harsh sun while keeping a close watch on her. "I've got you," he said softly. "We'll get you out of here." His calm voice was a lifeline, steadying her racing mind. Maria felt her panic ebb slightly. She had been alone for so long, but now there was someone beside her, someone taking charge, someone who would not leave. Carefully, he looked for a way to open the car door. The lock was stuck, and Maria had tried everything she could. The man's hands worked gently, precise but strong. He tried different approaches, using small tools he kept in his truck, testing the mechanism while keeping her comfort in mind. He explained each step, talking to her as he worked. "Just a little more patience," he said. "We'll have this open soon." His presence was soothing, a reminder that she was no longer alone and that help was coming steadily. While he worked, Maria's mind wandered to her life, reflecting on how quickly circumstances could change. One moment she had been running errands, feeling normal and independent. The next, she was trapped, alone, unsure if anyone would come. The fear was intense, but now, seeing the man's determination and focus, she realized that human kindness could appear in the most unexpected ways. She marveled at the thought that a stranger's willingness to act could mean the difference between life and death. The man finally managed to loosen the door slightly. He called out to Maria, instructing her carefully. "I'm going to open it fully now. Try to stay calm. I'll be right here with you." Maria took a deep, shaky breath, trying to steady her racing heart. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a small gap through which the man reached in, carefully supporting her frame. He was deliberate, ensuring that every movement minimized discomfort and avoided injury. His hands were steady, reassuring, and strong, a perfect balance to her fragile state. With extraordinary care, he lifted Maria out of the car. She felt the sun on her back, the wind brushing against her face, and the sudden relief of being free from the cramped, suffocating space. The man guided her to the shade of his truck, gently helping her sit and adjusting her position to reduce strain. He handed her water and encouraged her to take small sips. Each swallow gave her a little more strength, a little more hope, and a profound sense of relief. She could hardly believe that, after so many hours of fear, she was finally safe. The man stayed by her side, talking quietly to distract her from the pain and exhaustion. He asked her name, where she lived, and what had happened, listening patiently as she tried to explain. His empathy was evident in every word, every gesture. Maria realized that his actions went beyond simple assistance. They were an expression of genuine care. For the first time in hours, she felt a deep sense of security, the kind that comes from knowing that someone is truly present and invested in your well-being. As they waited for further help, Maria began to notice small details in the man's behavior that reassured her further. He moved gently, never rushing, always asking her if she was comfortable. He shaded her face, adjusted her posture, and offered encouragement, treating her with respect and dignity. Maria thought about how rare such patience and compassion could be in the world. She reflected on the lessons life had taught her, that courage and resilience were important, but so was the presence of others who were willing to act when needed. Maria also thought about her own fear and how it had evolved over the past hours. At first, it had been raw, almost unbearable. But now, with the man's calm guidance and steady presence, it began to transform into a cautious hope. She realized that fear was not always about the situation itself, but also about isolation and uncertainty. Once someone intervened, once a lifeline appeared, fear could be managed and even overcome. She marveled at the simple truth that human connection, even between strangers, could be so powerful. Minutes passed, but to Maria, they felt like lifetimes. Every small action of the man, the shade of his jacket, the careful lifting, the steady voice, made an enormous difference. She realized that heroism did not always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it came in quiet, deliberate actions, the ones that acknowledged a person's humanity and acted to protect it. She felt gratitude beyond words, tears forming but carefully held back, because she was too exhausted to even cry fully. Eventually, the man carefully guided Maria into his truck, helping her recline comfortably on the seat. He continued to speak softly, giving her updates about what would happen next and assuring her that she was in safe hands. Maria felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the sun. She realized that, in the midst of her most vulnerable moment, she had found a protector, someone who understood the value of patience, empathy, and careful action. The long hours of fear had not broken her. Instead, they had allowed her to recognize the extraordinary power of human kindness. As the truck slowly drove toward help, Maria reflected on the events that had led to this moment. The accident, the heat, the isolation, it had all been terrifying. Yet the arrival of the rancher, the man who had stopped without hesitation, had changed everything. She understood in that moment that hope could appear when least expected, that courage was not always about facing danger alone, and that even the smallest acts of compassion could have life-changing consequences. By the time they reached a safe location where emergency responders could take over, Maria felt a profound sense of relief. Her body was weak, her muscles fatigued, and her mind still racing, but she had survived. The rancher's careful, deliberate actions had made that possible. She looked at him, gratitude evident in her eyes, knowing that she would never forget this moment, this person, and the extraordinary kindness that had carried her through hours of fear and uncertainty. Even after emergency personnel took over, Maria continued to reflect on the lessons of the day. She realized that life could change in an instant, that vulnerability could strike at any moment, and that compassion from a stranger could make all the difference. She thought about how fear and hope existed side by side, and how the presence of someone willing to act, to intervene, and to care could tip the balance toward life, safety, and renewed faith in humanity. In those moments, Maria felt not only relief but also a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that the experience would stay with her forever, a story of survival, resilience, and the profound impact of a single act of kindness. She understood that life was unpredictable, but that within it, there were always opportunities for courage, hope, and human connection to shine through, even in the darkest of hours. The sun was beginning to dip behind the distant hills, casting long, soft shadows across the desert landscape. Maria sat in the back of the rancher's truck, her body still weak from hours trapped in the scorching car. Yet, she no longer felt the panic and fear that had consumed her earlier. The presence of the rancher, whose name she had learned was John, brought a sense of security she hadn't realized she needed so desperately. His steady hands, calm voice, and patient demeanor reassured her that she was no longer alone. Each mile that passed felt like a small victory, a step closer to safety and recovery. John spoke softly as he drove, his words gentle and steady. "You're going to be all right," he said. "We'll get you the care you need." "You've been very brave, hanging in there all this time." Maria tried to respond, but her voice was weak, barely above a whisper. She felt tears welling up in her eyes, not from fear, but from a profound sense of relief and gratitude. The fear of being trapped, of being overlooked, was slowly fading. For hours she had felt invisible, alone in the harsh world. Now, with John's kindness surrounding her, she felt truly seen for the first time that day. John's care was meticulous. He kept her shaded from the late afternoon sun, adjusted her seating to relieve pressure on her weak muscles, and checked frequently to make sure she was comfortable. He offered her water in small sips, encouraging her to drink slowly to avoid overwhelming her dehydrated body. Maria marveled at his patience and attention, understanding that he was acting with not only urgency, but also compassion. She realized that the smallest gestures, the careful positioning, the soft words, the constant presence, could make an enormous difference in moments of vulnerability. As they drove, Maria reflected on her ordeal. She thought about the fear that had gripped her when she was trapped, the helplessness of being confined in a hot car with limited mobility. The memory of that intense heat, the dryness of her throat, the loneliness, it was still vivid, but now it felt softened by the knowledge that she had survived. John's presence had transformed her fear into hope. She began to understand that survival was not only about strength or endurance, but also about the kindness and empathy of others. The landscape around them seemed to mirror Maria's shifting emotions. The harsh, sun-baked desert that had felt so threatening now appeared beautiful in the golden light of evening. The colors of the sky, soft pinks, oranges, and purples, offered a sense of peace and calm. Maria found herself noticing details she had not seen before. The way the wind brushed against the trees, the distant mountains glowing in the sunset, the subtle movements of desert wildlife. For the first time in hours, she could breathe without fear, noticing beauty in a world that had seemed so hostile just moments ago. John continued to speak in a steady, reassuring tone. "We're almost there," he said. "The medical team is ready for you, and they'll take good care of you." Maria nodded weakly, grateful for the guidance. She realized how much a calm voice and confident presence could stabilize a person in crisis. Every step of the journey was deliberate, careful, and compassionate. She thought about how rare it was to encounter someone who acted with such care and empathy without hesitation. This stranger, John, had become her lifeline, her protector, and her source of hope. When they finally reached a safe location where medical assistance awaited, John carefully helped Maria out of the truck. She felt the solid ground beneath her, steady and supportive, and a rush of relief washed over her. Medical personnel approached, ready to provide hydration, assess her condition, and offer further care. John stayed by her side, explaining everything to the staff and ensuring that Maria's needs were clearly communicated. She noticed how his attentiveness never wavered, even as professionals took over, and she realized that true compassion did not end once help arrived. It continued until the person in need was fully cared for. As the medical team worked, Maria allowed herself to relax for the first time in what felt like an eternity. She felt the cool touch of water, the soothing sensation of wet cloths on her face, and the gentle guidance of trained professionals. Her body, exhausted and strained, responded to the care. She could feel strength returning slowly, not fully, but enough to remind her that she was resilient. She thought about how fear and desperation had dominated her mind earlier, and she marveled at how quickly hope could take its place when someone showed genuine concern. John stayed close, talking quietly to Maria, sharing stories of the ranch, the cattle, and the quiet life he led. His words were simple, yet they carried a comforting rhythm, a sense of stability that helped her focus on the present rather than the terrifying hours she had endured. Maria realized that recovery was not only physical, it was emotional. The presence of someone who cared, who listened, and who treated her with respect and dignity was as important as the medical care she was receiving. As the sun set completely, Maria's mind wandered to the lessons she had learned. She thought about how fragile life could be, how quickly circumstances could change, and how crucial human connection was in moments of crisis. Her ordeal had shown her fear in its rawest form, but it had also revealed the power of compassion, the significance of patience, and the profound impact of a single act of kindness. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for John, but for the broader truth that people were capable of extraordinary empathy when they chose to act. Throughout the evening, John remained a steady presence. He reassured Maria that she would recover, that she had survived an extremely dangerous situation, and that she had displayed remarkable courage. Maria felt tears slipping down her cheeks, not from fear but from a mix of relief, gratitude, and overwhelming emotion. She realized that survival was not just about enduring hardship. It was about recognizing and accepting help, about trusting that the world still contained goodness, even in moments of darkness. The medical staff worked carefully, monitoring her hydration levels, checking for signs of heat stroke, and helping her regain strength. Maria followed their instructions, taking slow, deliberate sips of water, moving her arms gently as instructed, and focusing on her breathing. Every action felt like a small victory, a reminder of her determination to survive and recover. She reflected on the importance of resilience, patience, and trust, not just in herself, but in the people who had chosen to help her. As the evening turned into night, Maria's thoughts shifted to the future. She realized that she had been given a second chance, an opportunity to continue her life with renewed perspective. She felt a profound appreciation for the people who had played a role in her survival, the strangers, the medical personnel, and especially John. Their actions had turned what could have been a tragedy into a story of hope, courage, and human kindness. She made a quiet promise to herself to carry that lesson forward, to be more aware of the needs of others, and to recognize the power of empathy in her own life. By the time she was fully settled and under proper medical care, Maria felt a sense of peace she had not known in hours. Her body was still tired, but her spirit was calm. She thought about the journey she had endured, from fear to hope, from isolation to connection. She understood that this experience would stay with her forever, not as a source of trauma, but as a reminder of the resilience within her and the extraordinary impact of kindness. In those quiet moments, as the night embraced the desert and the stars began to twinkle overhead, Maria allowed herself to feel gratitude fully. She reflected on the fear, the struggle, and the relief, understanding that each emotion had its place in her story. Her ordeal had been frightening, exhausting, and challenging, yet it had also revealed the depth of human compassion and the resilience of the human spirit. She realized that even in the most desperate circumstances, hope could emerge, guided by the hands of those willing to help. As Maria drifted into a calm state, feeling the first real sense of safety in hours, she thought of John one last time before sleep claimed her. She knew she would never forget him, never forget the way he had appeared at exactly the right moment, or the quiet strength he had shown in ensuring her safety. She understood that the world could be unpredictable, and danger could arrive suddenly, but that the same world could also produce extraordinary acts of kindness, courage, and empathy. That night Maria slept more peacefully than she had in days, surrounded by care, safety, and the knowledge that she was not alone. Her body would heal, her spirit had been reinforced, and her heart carried a deep sense of gratitude. The events of the day had transformed her understanding of fear, hope, and human connection. She had survived not just through her own courage, but through the compassion of others, and in that realization, she found a renewed sense of purpose, strength, and faith in humanity. In the days following her rescue, Maria began to feel the slow but steady return of strength to her body. The hospital staff monitored her carefully, giving her fluids, nutrition, and the medical attention she needed after her ordeal. Each morning, she woke feeling a little stronger, a little more capable. Her body was still weak from the heat, dehydration, and the stress of being trapped, but her spirit was remarkably resilient. Maria reflected often on how close she had come to a tragedy, and the realization left her with an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had survived not only through her own courage but through the compassion and quick action of others. John, the rancher who had rescued her, remained a consistent presence in her recovery, even when his work on the ranch kept him busy. He visited her regularly, checking on her well-being, sharing stories from his life, and offering gentle encouragement. Maria realized that his presence was more than comforting. It was a reminder of the enduring power of human kindness. In every visit, he asked how she was feeling, what she needed, and offered practical advice for her recovery. This consistency and genuine care helped her feel safe, supported, and seen in a way she had not experienced during her hours of fear. As her body healed, Maria also began to heal emotionally. She had been through an intense ordeal, one that had left her terrified, exhausted, and uncertain. Yet, the experience had also taught her the profound value of empathy, patience, and human connection. She spent hours reflecting on the lessons she had learned, the importance of trusting others, of accepting help when needed, and of maintaining hope even in dire circumstances. She realized that her fear had been natural, but that her courage, her patience, and the kindness of others had been stronger. During her recovery, Maria also reconnected with her family and community. They had been anxiously waiting for news, fearful for her safety, and overjoyed to hear of her survival. The experience reminded her of the love and support that surrounded her, even in her most isolated moments. Her story of survival became a source of inspiration within her community. People admired her resilience, her courage, and the way she had faced adversity with determination and grace. Maria understood that sharing her experience could offer hope and strength to others who might face challenges of their own. The bond between Maria and John grew stronger as her recovery progressed. She came to appreciate not only the heroic act of his initial rescue, but also the consistent kindness, care, and patience he demonstrated afterward. They spent time talking about life, challenges, and shared values. Maria learned about John's years on the ranch, the lessons he had learned from the land and animals, and his belief in helping others without expecting anything in return. She found comfort in his wisdom and humility, realizing that heroes did not always appear in dramatic moments. They often acted quietly, with steady determination and compassion. Maria also reflected on the fragility and unpredictability of life. The events of that day had reminded her that circumstances could change in an instant, that danger could appear unexpectedly, and that even small actions could have enormous consequences. She understood that she had been given a second chance, a renewed opportunity to live fully, to cherish her loved ones, and to approach each day with awareness and gratitude. This realization became a guiding principle in her recovery, motivating her to embrace life more fully and appreciate the people and experiences that enriched it. As her physical strength returned, Maria began to regain independence. Simple tasks that had seemed impossible in the immediate aftermath of her ordeal gradually became manageable. Walking with assistance, stretching her arms, and performing small activities around her home reminded her of her resilience and capacity for recovery. Each accomplishment, no matter how small, reinforced her confidence and reminded her that the human spirit could endure even the most extreme challenges. She felt pride in her progress, knowing that it had been achieved through both her determination and the support of those who had cared for her. Throughout this period, Maria maintained regular communication with John. Their conversations, initially centered around her health and recovery, expanded to include shared experiences, advice, and reflections on life. She found herself relying on him not just for physical support, but for emotional reassurance and friendship. The trust that had been established during the rescue deepened into a genuine bond, one built on mutual respect, care, and the shared understanding of what it meant to face vulnerability and emerge stronger. Maria realized that friendships formed in the crucible of crisis could become some of the most enduring and meaningful relationships in life. Maria also used this time to give back to her community. She shared her story in a way that highlighted resilience, courage, and the importance of empathy. She spoke about her experience with honesty and humility, emphasizing the value of human kindness and the difference one person's actions could make in another's life. Her story inspired others to pay attention to those in need, to offer help when possible, and to recognize that small, compassionate acts could have life-changing effects. Maria felt a deep sense of fulfillment in knowing that her ordeal could create a ripple of positive impact beyond her own life. In addition to sharing her story, Maria dedicated time to personal reflection and growth. She began keeping a journal, documenting her journey from fear and isolation to safety and recovery. Writing allowed her to process her emotions, acknowledge her vulnerabilities, and celebrate her resilience. Each entry became a reminder of the lessons she had learned, the power of hope, the importance of patience, the value of compassion, and the enduring strength that resides within every person. This practice helped her solidify a sense of purpose and clarity, guiding her toward a future shaped by awareness and gratitude. As weeks passed, Maria's relationship with John evolved into a lasting friendship. They spent time together outside of the circumstances of the rescue, sharing meals, walking in nature, and discussing life's challenges and joys. Their bond was a testament to the enduring impact of genuine human connection, a reminder that the kindness of one person could change the trajectory of another's life. Maria often reflected on how fortunate she had been to encounter John at exactly the right moment, and how the combination of her resilience and his compassion had created a story of survival and hope. Maria also felt a renewed connection to her Apache heritage and the values instilled in her from a young age. She reflected on the teachings of her elders, the lessons of courage, perseverance, and community that had guided her throughout her life. She realized that these values had been instrumental in helping her endure the hours of fear and isolation. They had given her strength, patience, and a perspective that allowed her to survive. Maria felt a profound sense of pride in her heritage, understanding that the lessons of her ancestors continued to guide and support her even in the most challenging moments. Over time, Maria returned to her daily routines, stronger, more confident, and more appreciative of life than ever before. She understood that her ordeal had been a turning point, a moment that had taught her the depth of human resilience and the extraordinary impact of compassion. She approached each day with intention, seeking to live fully, help others when possible, and embrace life with awareness and gratitude. Her perspective had shifted. She no longer took small moments for granted and recognized the importance of connection, empathy, and support. As Maria continued to heal physically, emotionally, and spiritually, she carried with her a profound sense of gratitude and purpose. She knew that life was unpredictable and that challenges would continue to arise, but she felt prepared to face them with resilience, courage, and hope. The lessons of that day, the fear, the desperation, the kindness of a stranger, and the power of human connection, had become an enduring part of her story. She understood that survival was not only about enduring hardship, but also about embracing support, recognizing empathy, and cultivating hope. In the end, Maria's journey was a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the profound impact of compassion. She had faced a life-threatening situation, endured hours of fear and isolation, and emerged stronger and more resilient. The rancher's quick thinking, empathy, and unwavering care had saved her life, and their bond had grown into a lasting friendship. Maria carried forward the lessons of her experience with humility and gratitude, determined to live a life filled with awareness, compassion, and hope. Her story became a beacon of inspiration, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, human kindness could illuminate the path forward. Maria had survived not just through her own courage, but through the empathy and action of another. She embraced life with renewed strength, cherished the bonds she had formed, and dedicated herself to living with intention, gratitude, and compassion. The journey had changed her forever, and she knew that she would carry the lessons of that day with her always, a reminder of resilience, hope, and the extraordinary power of human connection.